So now we've got our three classes set up in our models folder. We've got our course, enrollment and student classes. And we can have a look at what we've got set up here. So these are the classes that have got code in them copied from the tutorial, as we've seen here with the student example. So here's our student class. We've got ID, last name, first mid name, enrollment date and enrollments, which is a relationship to the enrollments entity or class. Enrollment has these attributes and a grade enumerable type. If you want to learn a bit more about that, please read through the details in the tutorial, which provides some details on that. And we have our course class, which is fairly simple. It has an ID, title, and credits, and again another link to enrollment. So at this point, you'll see some of the attributes have a little green squiggly underline. The fact that it's green means it's not a critical warning or a critical error, but it's a little warning for us. In this case, it's to do with nullable attribute data types. And there's some reading here explaining what's going on. Basically, because of the current version of .NET Core and the scaffolding, we need to tweak a couple of bits of configuration to make sure that our app builds clean. And when we get on to the next step of scaffolding our pages, we won't have any issues. So just to demonstrate what I mean by a clean build, we can build our project without running it in our browser, and whereas we might want to hit the kind of run button here to run it in our browser, which would also build it, we can just build it on its own. And we can either build or do a complete rebuild. Now, as you can see earlier, I've rebuilt this project as per the instructions in the tutorial, and I get quite a few warnings. You can see these in the warning output here, and all of them are related to this non-nullable property issue. And the fact that it still builds, we can actually see the build confirmation down here. It succeeded. So the project actually built fine. It would run, but we're getting some warnings. It's just telling us something that it might cause some issues down the line. Don't worry too much about the specifics of this, but essentially we're going to solve this by following the instructions in the tutorial. Essentially, we need to edit the main project file and remove this line of code. So to do that, we open up the main project file, which is here. So John's test project.cs proj. And we can see here we have the line nullable. And so I'm going to delete that. And there we go. Let's try a rebuild just to see what happens. Okay, so the app still successfully builds, but we've got a fewer number of warnings, which is what we want. Just a side note, this project file here, you'll notice that it has some other settings here defined, which tells us, for example, the target framework of .NET, and we can see that this confirms that this project is running on .NET Core 6. So if you ever need to check what version of .NET a project is running on, perhaps you couldn't remember what you set your project up to use, you can open the main project file here and check what the attributes are showing. So we have one more thing to fix as per the instructions. So we need to remove the question mark nullable reference type annotation from this attribute in the pages error file. So let's go into pages. Let's find the error page. And it's the .cshtml.cs file. So it's not the page itself, it's the code behind file. And if we look for this line here, so public string request ID, and there we go. So this is the line, and it wants us to remove the question mark. So the question mark states that something can be nullable. Now if we remove that question mark, we're telling the application that we don't want it to be nullable. So it has to always have a value. Essentially that's what we're doing here. So let's delete that and we will rebuild. Okay, so rebuild succeeded, and the good news is no warnings. So we have a clean build, and now we are ready to go on to the next step of scaffolding our CRUD, create, read, update and delete pages.